Good morning, everybody. I'm Nate Rowanchuk. I'm one of the application engineers at S2. I've been with S2 about 3 years now, a little over 3 years. Prior to joining S2, I worked at Pfizer Pharmaceuticals with their global security team for about 10 years. So I have the end user side as well as the manufacturer side. But if we want to go around the room, we'll do some introductions, and then we can get started with the training. And this is, your training. It's geared towards end users, but it's your training. If there are any questions or any discussions you want to get into, we can certainly do that. And have a little slide deck here, just to kind of show you the S2 system architecture. The S2 system, I don't know how many of you are familiar. I'm assuming all of you have some level of familiarity with the S2 system, but it's a web-based system, so it uses a web browser to access the software. So that's what it's showing over here. Use your web browser of your choice to connect to the S2 system. So the S2, the network controller, is what has the web server on it, and that's what communicates with everything else on the network in regards to the S2 system. So you log into the S2 controller over the network using your browser, and then the field devices, whether you're using S2 nodes or Mercury or remote lock sets or anything else that communicates with the S2 system, will connect back to this S2 network controller. And then you have your video, your video management system, which you can tie into it. Your cameras will connect to that. And then we have some other applications that you can connect to your S2 system, which we'll get into later. But the S2 Magic Monitor is a new client software package that we have available as well. We'll touch on that later. The S2 Global Management System. Is anybody using S2 Global right now?
I don't think anybody in here
Okay.
is using that.
Okay. But just to kind of touch on it, global, if you were to have a large enterprise system where you have, sites just distributed all over the world, you might look at, a global system. You would have a bunch of these S2 netbox controllers, and then you would have global sitting on top of it, kind of connecting them all together. And then we have our mobile app, which we'll jump into a little bit. So the first step is open the web browser. We'll get logged into the S2 system. There's a training network controller here, the S2 system, so we can log into that, and you guys can play with that system, can create accounts, and we'll be working off of that system to train on. So the system's access through the web browser, as I mentioned. Wanted to touch on this briefly. Securing the client communication. When you're logging into the S2 system, if your system's set up to use encryption, you're going to be using the HTTPS protocol, which is the encrypted version of the HTTP protocol, which is what you'll want to use if your system's set up for that. If it's not, I would probably recommend that, but most likely your system will probably be set up with that. So we'll jump into this in a moment. We'll get logged into the system.
What was that URL again?
It's right here.
10.100.40.50.
Everybody see that? It's kind of, might be kind of small in the back. It's right on that screen behind you too. So this training system was set up with what we call a self-signed certificate. So you can see where it says not secure. It is using that HTTPS secure protocol, but the certificate isn't valid. It's not being validated by what we call a certification authority. So what we'll do at this point is I'll have you guys create your own accounts on the training system. I'll show you how to do that. So once you're logged in, we're gonna go to the administration menu. And then we're gonna click people add. So if you're familiar with the S2 system already, this page might look a little bit different than what you're used to. This is the newest version of the software, and we have reskinned some of the pages, the person page being one of them. So it might look a little bit different than what you're used to. But once you're on this page, if you just want to type in your name, once you've plugged in your name, you can click save, and then over here on the left, we're going to click the login button. Are we all on that login page? All right. So here you can create a username for yourself and password. So once you have your username and password in, we're going to select a user role. And for now, we're going to select full system setup. So while we're here, there's 4 user roles that are defined in the system by default. Full system setup gives you master access to everything in the system. And then these are other user roles which are a little bit more restrictive. So once you have that, you can go ahead and click save. And then if you want, you can log out and then log back in with your account.
Nate, real quick, can you talk about the IDs? It's just picking the next one in use.
Yep.
And then leading zeros. If I were to type my own one in there and it had a 0 in front of it, it would get rid of the leading 0.
So the ID number, the S2 system can generate this ID. This is a unique ID number assigned to the person. But you can define a prefix that goes in here with that default ID number. But typically this would be where you put like an employee ID number or something unique to that person.
There's a setting in the network controller, I think it's a checkbox that says whether you're gonna enforce whether that's gonna be unique or not. So if you're gonna use it as a unique ID, you wanna set that.
Do you want to mention why you'd want to do that? I think I've had a few people that didn't do that and then ran into some problems.
Right, so
later.
we haven't really jumped in the person
Oh.
page yet. We're just
Sorry.
getting the initial login.
I get-
We're gonna get into the person page stuff shortly, but I wanted to get you guys set up with your own accounts so you can log into the system. So everybody have their own account, everybody log in successfully. Okay, perfect. So as you're creating passwords and whatnot for users, there are obviously a couple of best practices. You want to make sure that the passwords that you're choosing are a combination of letters, numbers, special characters. Try to make it a decent password in the complexity. Avoid shorter passwords. try to create passwords between 8 and 16 characters. These are things you guys probably are already aware of, but we want to mention it. And then in some of your web browsers, if you plug in your username and password, it will ask you if you want to save that. Typically, it's not recommended to do that because it could obviously open up a security vulnerability if somebody else happens to sit at your PC or get access to your PC. They could log into the system with your account. The S2 system also can be configured to use your domain authentication. So you can connect S2 with your LDAP server Active Directory and then use your network passwords to log into the system. And then it would follow your network password policies. So once you're logged into the system, you're going to see a page like this. This is the activity monitor. So this page, this window here is showing all of the system activities that are coming in. This system isn't too busy because it's a training system, so it's not showing you a lot of activity, but you can see that it's showing all of the logins and logouts that we've been conducting in the past couple of moments. But if this were, set up at your facility, you would see, all of your card swipes and whatnot in here, as well as events and other things like that. So just to go through the user interface here, we have a couple of different menus here that I want to review with you. The first one here is the home button. So this is a definable home button. You can configure that home button in the software just by going over here to this menu and clicking Set as Home. So you would pick the page that you want to show up every time you log into the system. You would just go to that menu and click Set as Home, and then every time you log in, that's going to be your page, the page that shows up in the browser. The next menu is the monitor menu. So this menu is primarily for people who are monitoring the system. If you want to look at activities or events, you want to check a door status, you can do that from this menu. We'll get into some of the widgets, the menu items shortly. The next menu is the administration menu. Once it loads, you'll see some icons. You should. There we go. So this is like a badging administrator or somebody who's responsible to insert new people or manage your card holders. This is the menu where you would go for managing your card holders and whatnot, or running reports. You could schedule overrides for doors and stuff like that in here as well. And then the next one is the configuration menu. This is where your system configuration is done. So this is where you would add your field devices, your card readers, all of the ancillary devices on the doors, like the door monitors. So there's little door sensors, the door locks and whatnot would all be done in here. Cameras, intrusion panels, all that stuff would get done in the configuration menu, typically by your integrator would typically manage all of that stuff. And then the next icon is a search. So this would be used if you didn't know where something was in the menu tree. You could click on this search icon and type in, what you're looking for, and it will give you the sections that you're trying to find. So if you're trying to find reports, you type report, it's gonna give you all the sections that are relevant to that keyword. And then there's another menu item here called recent. If you highlight these three dots here, recent's gonna be anything that you've been doing in the software recently. Any sections that you've been in the system will appear in this menu. So if you were, just on a person page, it would show you, maybe the person search here. It's just kind of a quick way to get back to the section that you were in. Over here, the top right, we have a couple of things. This icon right here is showing the number of alarms or events currently in the system. It's just a quick tally to kind of show you that, hey, you have some events that were activated in the system. So you can get a quick snapshot of that. This bar right here with all the colors on it is called the threat level status. So the threat level, or a threat level in the system is basically it's based on maybe something that happened at your facility. You could set a threat level, like an active shooter or a fire alarm at your facility. You could have the system threat level changed so that it changes the behavior of your system. So this is indicating the current threat level, which we'll get into in a little bit. And this menu over here on the right is called the command palette. This is where you can log out, you can set your home button, you can print the page that you're currently on. You also have a help guide. So this is helpful when you're trying to figure something out. Maybe you want to know how to assign an access level to a person or how to generate a report. The help guide will explain all of that for you. And another nice thing about the help is when you click that help, it's going to pull up the help relevant to the page that you're on. So, and it's very intuitive. Most of the time you can find what you're looking for in those help guides. So it's always a good place to go first if you're trying to figure something out in the system. That help guide is definitely beneficial. Then you have an about icon. So this is going to give you some information about your system. It's going to show you what your system's licensed for, a couple of other things, your system ID, and just some information about your specific system. The change password is obviously so you can change your account password. You can click on that and change your password when you need to. Threat level. So this is the same thing as this, but this is actually where you would set it. So you can see some of the default threat levels that are predefined in the system. You can see here you can change based on different situations at your facility. Duty log entry, so this would be if you had maybe somebody monitoring the system. If you guys actively monitor your system, you might put what we call a duty log entry in the system, which is basically just some text that you log into the system, and it's typically in relation to an alarm or an event that occurred. You can report on that later on if you need to, but it just kind of shows you, if you're looking at, your events, you report on your events, you can maybe look at the duty logs to figure out why those events occurred. unlock portal. So the S2 system, we call doors portals, or openings. Any opening or door is going to be called a portal in the S2 system. So here you have an unlock portal, so you can click on that and it will show you your doors, and then you can unlock them or schedule your door unlocks. And then Magic Monitor, the last icon, that's for the Magic Monitor application, which we can get into in a little bit, but basically you can push different content to the Magic Monitor screen from the S2 software.
Hey, so Nate, before you leave that screen, one thing that's kind of significant that in older versions of software, you could be back, like, let's say you were editing a personal record or adding a new card holder or marking card is lost, whatever you were doing, an alarm could come in and you wouldn't know about it. That's one of the reasons why they kept that little alarm tally up in the bar, so it's always up there and you can see if something populates. And then also it's set up as a hyperlink, so if you click on that actual alarm icon, it'll jump you to a different page. Right? And this is called the monitoring desktop, which I'm not trying to get in front of his training again, because I'm sure Lynn will probably go into this too, so.
Yep. So the page that we were just on is the monitoring homepage. So if you go into the monitor menu, it's this button right here. So this page has a couple of different widgets. It has the activity log. It has a tally of events and portal statuses if they're currently in alarm. And you could have some other things that show up in here as well. If you have field devices that aren't connected, if you have video events, you could see some other items pop up in this as well. But this is basically just giving you a snapshot of your current your current system events. But if you want to really take a look at what's going on, we would jump to one of these pages. This is called the monitoring desktop. As Mac said, you can just click on the icon, it will bring you here. Then you can take a look at what's an alarm. The top up here is called the event monitor. It shows you a list of different events or alarms in your system. Some of these can be set up to be acknowledged. Other events might be in there based on a trigger. A trigger could be anything. It could be a push button, it could be a motion alarm, it could be your door, you have a door that's left open, it's called a door held open. So there's a number of different things that can cause events or alarms, and they're all configurable in the system. So, as the system's getting configured, it can be configured with those triggers in the event definitions and how you want to manage those events.